What do you do when someone disrespects you? Most people lash out in anger or sulk in silence. But Machiavelli teaches us a darker, far more effective way, one that ensures you are never disrespected again. Disrespect is never just a simple insult. It is not a fleeting word, nor a careless gesture to be brushed aside. In the eyes of Machiavelli, disrespect is the seed of rebellion, a crack in the armor of authority. Once a subject, a rival, or even an ally dares to mock you openly, they are not merely expressing their opinion. They are testing the boundaries of your power. And if that test goes unanswered, you have already begun to lose. Disrespect is dangerous because it spreads. It begins with one bold voice, one insolent act. But quickly others take notice. People watch how you react. If they see hesitation, if they see weakness, the act of defiance becomes a signal to others. The message is clear: your power can be challenged without consequence. In a single moment, your reputation, which took years to build, can be shattered. Machiavelli teaches us that men are quick to imitate rebellion when it seems safe to do so. And so, every act of disrespect is not isolated, it is contagious. Consider this: a ruler who ignores an insult from one nobleman may believe he is taking the higher path. He tells himself that silence is dignity, but in truth, silence is surrender. The court begins to whisper, advisors begin to doubt. Soldiers begin to wonder if their leader truly commands, and the nobleman who insulted him, he grows stronger, emboldened by his small victory, and prepares the next strike. This is why Machiavelli insists disrespect is not personal. It is political. To treat it as anything less is to invite your own undoing. Disrespect does not always appear as open rebellion. Sometimes it comes in the form of sarcasm, of subtle gestures, of quiet resistance. A servant who does not bow deeply enough, a soldier who hesitates when ordered, a rival who smiles when you falter. Many rulers dismiss these as trivial. But Machiavelli would remind you, in politics, there are no trivialities. Every sign, every gesture, every word either strengthens your image or weakens it. To allow disrespect to pass is to weaken yourself, even if only by a fraction. And power, my friends, is lost not in a single stroke, but in the slow erosion of authority. Imagine a prince surrounded by his council. One advisor speaks out of turn, contradicts him in front of others. If the prince smiles and allows it, thinking it shows tolerance, what message has he sent? He has shown that his word can be interrupted, that his voice can be questioned, and from that moment his authority is no longer absolute. Another advisor will soon follow the first, then another, until one day, the prince is no longer a ruler but a figurehead, a man stripped of command by his own passivity. This is why disrespect must be treated as a threat, not because it wounds your pride, but because it undermines your image of strength. Pride is personal, power is political. Machiavelli reminds us that men respect authority not because it is kind, not because it is noble, but because it appears unshakable. Once that illusion cracks, even the loyal will abandon you. For men are loyal to opportunity, not to virtue. You see, people are always watching their leaders, their masters, their rivals. They are studying, calculating, measuring. They ask themselves, is this man strong enough to lead? Can he protect us? Can he punish us? If the answer begins to lean toward no, then respect fades. And where respect fades, rebellion grows. Disrespect is the first step in that process, a signal that power can be contested. And make no mistake, if one man dares to challenge you openly, it is because he believes others secretly agree with him. That is why you must never ignore it. In Machiavelli's world, power is theater. Every act is a performance, every response a signal to the audience. When someone disrespects you, you are not simply reacting to them, you are addressing the entire crowd that watches in silence. If you falter, the crowd will remember. If you strike, the crowd will obey. To handle disrespect correctly is not about vengeance, it is about preserving the illusion of control. And in politics, the illusion is as important as reality itself. So, when you are disrespected, you must recognize it for what it truly is: an attack on your throne, however small. It is a declaration that your power can be tested, that your word can be bent, that your image can be mocked. And the moment that thought enters the minds of others, it spreads like fire. Men who would never have dared before suddenly feel the courage to oppose you. Allies begin to reconsider their loyalty. Enemies begin to sharpen their knives. Disrespect, then, is not a matter of pride, it is a matter of survival. For in the realm of power, authority is everything. And once authority slips, once your subjects no longer fear the weight of your response, you are finished. This is why Machiavelli warns us, treat disrespect not as an insult, but as an early strike against your sovereignty. If you fail to see it, you fail to defend your crown. When a man is disrespected, his first instinct is to strike back immediately. He shouts, he rages, he curses. He believes this sudden explosion proves his strength. But in truth, It only exposes his weakness. For the man who cannot master himself can never master others. Machiavelli teaches us that power is not maintained through emotion, but through calculation. The true ruler does not respond in haste. He does not allow anger to guide his hand. He measures, he waits, and he chooses the exact moment when his response will cut deepest. Consider the difference between the ordinary man and the Machiavellian mind. The ordinary man, insulted in public, lunges like a wild animal. He may silence his offender for the moment, but he has revealed his temper. He has shown that others can control him with mere words. The Machiavellian ruler, on the other hand, remains calm. He smiles, perhaps, or simply looks with indifference, allowing the offender to believe his insult has gone unanswered. Yet beneath that calm surface, plans are already forming. The offender feels victorious, but in reality, he has already sealed his fate. The calculated response is not about speed. It is about certainty. When you choose to answer disrespect, you must do so in a way that not only punishes the offender, but also deters all others. A hasty retaliation may silence one man, but leave the crowd unconvinced. A calculated response, however, is unforgettable. It teaches a lesson that echoes far beyond the moment, ensuring no one dares to repeat the offense. Think of the lion and the fox, the two animals Machiavelli admired. The lion uses brute force, the fox uses cunning. Alone each is vulnerable, but together they form the perfect ruler. When disrespected, the fool charges like the lion, showing all his strength in a single moment. The wise ruler waits like the fox, silent, watching, waiting for the right trap to close. And when it closes, the strike is not just effective, it is final. The danger of immediate reaction is not only that it exposes your emotions, but that it risks miscalculation. In anger, you may strike too harshly, creating sympathy for your enemy, or you may strike too softly, emboldening him further. But when you respond with calculation, there is no mistake. Every move is deliberate, every action has meaning. And the result is not just punishment, it is control. Picture this: a nobleman dares to mock his prince in front of the court. The prince could lash out instantly, banish him in rage, and appear strong. But what happens next? The court whispers. They say the prince is insecure, unable to tolerate words. They say his power is fragile if a mere insult shakes him. Instead, the Machiavellian prince does nothing at first. He allows the nobleman to bask in his false victory. The court grows bold in its whispers. The nobleman believes himself untouchable. And then, at the moment of his greatest arrogance, the prince strikes. Not with mere banishment, but with a punishment so precise, so undeniable, that it leaves no doubt who holds true power. The nobleman's fall becomes a spectacle, and the court, once tempted to rebel, is reminded of the iron hand hidden beneath the prince's calm exterior. This is the essence of the calculated responsa: to make your enemy believe he has won, only to crush him when he least expects it. The effect is magnified, the lesson permanent. Machiavelli understood that fear is most powerful when it arrives after a false sense of security. For men who believe themselves safe are devastated when reality proves otherwise. The calculated response also protects your image. To rule, you must appear in control at all times. Anger reveals you are ruled by passion. Silence reveals you are ruled by fear. But patience reveals mastery. When you choose the time and place of your response, you show the world that you are never a victim of circumstance. You are the author of it. The offender did not pull you into battle. You decided when the battle would begin and how it would end. That is power. And yet, calculation is not the same as hesitation. To delay forever is weakness. To plan without acting is cowardice. The Machiavellian way is balance. You delay only long enough to prepare the perfect strike, but not so long that others begin to doubt your resolve. Timing is everything. Respond too soon, and you look desperate. Respond too late, and you look afraid. Respond at the right moment, and you look inevitable. Disrespect, then, is not to be met with rage, but with theater. Your response must be seen, remembered, and feared. It must remind the offender and all who watch that no slight against you goes unanswered, though the answer may not come when expected. And when it does come, it must be so calculated that it not only silences the offender, but teaches everyone who witnesses it that you are not to be tested. The calculated response transforms disrespect from a threat into an opportunity. It allows you to show your strength without seeming rash, to prove your dominance without revealing your insecurities. It is the art of turning an insult into a performance of power. For in Machiavelli's world, power is not just possessed, it is displayed, and nothing displays power more clearly than the ability to wait, to plan, and to strike only when the moment ensures victory. In the game of power, there is one question every ruler must face: should he seek to be loved, or should he ensure that he is feared? The heart longs for love, for the comfort of admiration and loyalty. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that men are fickle. Love is fleeting. It bends with fortune, it breaks in hardship, it disappears at the first scent of danger. Fear, however, endures. Fear binds men more tightly than affection ever could, because fear lives in their imagination, even when you are not present. And this is why forgiveness is a dangerous luxury. When you forgive those who disrespect you, you may appear merciful in the eyes of some, but in truth, you invite more disrespect. Mercy is interpreted as weakness, leniency as softness. The offender thinks to himself, I crossed him once, and I lived. Why not cross him again? The others who watch think the same. Forgiveness does not eliminate rebellion, it encourages it. Imagine a soldier who refuses to obey his commander's order in the heat of battle. If the commander forgives him, hoping to preserve unity, what happens? The soldier learns that disobedience carries no cost. The other soldiers see that their commander tolerates insubordination. Soon, discipline unravels. What began as mercy to one man becomes poison to the entire army. In this way, forgiveness weakens the very foundations of authority. Machiavelli reminds us that men are not loyal by nature. They are loyal only as long as it benefits them. When times are easy, they may remain by your side, smiling, praising, swearing allegiance. But when difficulty comes, when they must choose between their own safety and their devotion to you, they will abandon you without hesitation. Love evaporates in the heat of danger. Fear, however, restrains them. A man who fears punishment will think twice before betraying you, for the consequences are certain, and they follow him like a shadow. You must understand, forgiveness places your fate in the goodwill of others. Fear places their fate in your hands. This is the difference. A ruler who forgives too often gives power to those beneath him. He allows them to decide when to test him, when to disobey, when to insult. A ruler who governs through fear ensures that none dare to test him at all. Fear leaves no room for doubt. Now, do not mistake this truth. To rule by fear does not mean to be cruel for cruelty's sake. Reckless cruelty breeds hatred, and hatred can be dangerous if it grows too deep. But a calculated use of fear as a shield, a weapon, and a language all men understand. It is not about inflicting pain at every moment. It is about ensuring that those under your rule know the cost of crossing you, and that the cost is too high to bear. Consider the city-state that falls into chaos because its leader is too merciful. Criminals are pardoned, rebels forgiven, traitors restored to favor. The leader believes he is loved, but in truth, he is despised. For men do not respect the one who forgives endlessly, they despise him for his weakness. They may flatter him in public, but in private they laugh, knowing he is incapable of discipline. Compare this to the ruler who punishes swiftly, who shows mercy only rarely and with great purpose. His people may not love him, but they respect him, they obey him, and most importantly, they fear him enough to keep order. The illusion of love is dangerous because it blinds rulers to reality. Love is voluntary. It is fragile. It is easily replaced. A subject who claims to love you today may claim to love your enemy tomorrow if it serves his interest. But fear does not depend on their choice. Fear is imposed upon them. It holds them captive. It forces them to consider the consequences of betrayal, and in that hesitation lies your security. Forgiveness tempts rulers because it feels noble. It flatters the ego. It makes them believe they are benevolent, that history will remember them as merciful. But Machiavelli would warn history remembers strength, not kindness. Mercy without strength is forgotten. Fear without mercy is remembered. When you are feared, men may not sing your praises, but they will obey your command, and obedience is the foundation of power. Think of the father who forgives his child's defiance again and again. At first, the child is grateful, but eventually, the child no longer respects him. Each act of forgiveness makes the father seem smaller, weaker, less worthy of authority. The child learns not discipline, but contempt. Now think of the father who disciplines firmly, who punishes when necessary and forgives rarely. That child may not always love him, but he will respect him. He will obey, knowing the price of defiance. So it is with rulers and their subjects. Forgiveness should be rare, deliberate, and calculated, never given freely. When used too often, it destroys respect. When used sparingly, it can magnify fear. For when men know that punishment is certain, the rare gift of mercy becomes meaningful. It surprises them, binds them with gratitude, and strengthens loyalty. But when mercy is expected, it loses all value and only reveals the weakness of the hand that gives it. Machiavelli knew that men are ungrateful by nature. They forget favors quickly, but they remember punishments forever. Forgiveness fades from memory like smoke. Fear carves itself into the mind like stone. This is why, when faced with disrespect, the ruler must resist the temptation to forgive. For to forgive too freely is to hand away power, and once power slips from your grip, no amount of kindness will restore it. Every ruler, Every leader, every man who holds power will eventually face the question, how far must I go to ensure that disrespect never returns? For insults and challenges are not accidents, they are trials. And if your response is weak, they will return again and again, until you are no longer feared, no longer obeyed, no longer relevant. Machiavelli teaches us that the final strategy is not one of half measures. It is not enough to silence disrespect for a moment. It must be destroyed at its root, so that it cannot grow back to haunt you. The mistake most men make is to believe that words are enough. They rebuke, they lecture, they warn. They imagine that their authority will be restored by speeches. But power is not secured through persuasion, it is secured through action. A man who disrespects you once, and is allowed to live unbroken, will always carry the memory of his defiance. That memory fuels him. It reminds him that you can be challenged, that your rule is not absolute. The final strategy ensures he never has the chance to remember, because he never has the chance to rise again. Think of a rival who mocks a prince in front of his court. If the prince merely scolds him, the rival walks away with pride intact. If the prince punishes him lightly, the rival nurses his wound and dreams of revenge. But if the prince destroys him completely, ruins his standing, strips him of his influence, and leaves him a warning to all who watch, then no one else dares to follow his path. The act is not about cruelty. It is about permanence. Machiavelli insists when you strike, you must strike in such a way that your enemy cannot recover. This principle is the essence of real power. Mercy can be undone, forgiveness can be forgotten, but decisive destruction cannot be reversed. It is final, undeniable, and unforgettable. The offender is removed not just in body, but in reputation. His voice silenced, his allies scattered, his example transformed from inspiration into caution. The others who remain see what happens to those who dare, and in their fear lies your safety. Machiavelli warns against leaving an enemy half defeated. A wounded enemy is more dangerous than a whole one, because he has nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. But a destroyed enemy cannot rise. His absence strengthens you more than his survival ever could. This is why the final strategy demands not moderation, but decisiveness. Do not punish with hesitation. Do not allow him space to breathe. Once you have chosen to respond, you must ensure there is no chance of retaliation. The final strategy is not always physical. In many cases, it is the destruction of reputation. A rival who disrespects you in public thrives on the attention he gains. To counter him, you must not only silence his words, but also dismantle the foundation of his influence. Perhaps you expose his weaknesses, reveal his corruption, strip away his allies until he stands alone. By the time you are finished, his name carries no weight. He has no voice, no power, no place in the arena of influence. This is destruction without blood, but it is destruction all the same. Fear is born not from momentary punishments, but from irreversible consequences. If men see that disrespect leads only to a slap on the wrist, they will risk it. But if they see that disrespect leads to total ruin, they will obey without hesitation. The final strategy works because it does not allow space for doubt. It leaves only one conclusion. To cross you is to lose everything. Imagine a ruler who forgives insults year after year. His people begin to think him soft. His rivals test him repeatedly. Each act of mercy chips away at his throne until one day he is overthrown entirely. Now imagine another ruler. The first man who disrespects him is crushed utterly. His lands taken, his allies punished, his name erased. The people whisper of his fall not with laughter, but with fear. And when they look to their ruler, they do so with the knowledge that no one survives defiance. That ruler never has to punish often, because one example was enough. The final strategy is ruthless, but it is efficient. A single decisive action can prevent 100 smaller rebellions. A single unforgettable lesson can keep order longer than a lifetime of speeches. Power is not maintained by the illusion of kindness, but by the certainty of consequences. And certainty comes only when your enemies know they will not be spared. Do not think of this as cruelty for its own sake. Machiavelli does not advise pointless violence or reckless bloodshed. Such chaos breeds hatred, and hatred unites enemies. No, the final strategy is precise. It is targeted. It is a strike delivered with purpose, designed not only to eliminate the offender, but to demonstrate a principle: to all disrespect is not tolerated, and those who attempt it will not survive the attempt. This is the difference between the ruler who endures and the ruler who falls. The weak ruler punishes lightly, forgives quickly, and spends his life stamping out the same fires again and again. The strong ruler strikes once with finality, and the fire never returns. By removing the source completely, he removes the threat permanently. And in this permanence lies the secret to lasting power. Disrespect is not a mere insult. It is a weapon, a challenge, a test of your authority. Machiavelli understood that those who ignore it invite ruin, Those who react in haste reveal weakness, and those who forgive too freely guarantee future betrayal. The path of power demands something darker, something colder. The art of responding not with emotion, but with calculation. When disrespected, you must not see the act as personal, but as political. You must not answer with rage, but with strategy. And when you strike, it must be with such certainty that no man dares to repeat the mistake. Fear lasts longer than love, and destruction is more permanent than mercy. This is the Machiavellian truth. To secure respect, you must be willing to walk the darkest path. To hesitate is to invite rebellion. To forgive is to invite betrayal. But to respond with calculation, with fear, and with finality, that is to rule with unshakable authority.